In the heart of the Blue Mountains, nestled in the historic town of Lithgow, stands a testament to Australia's industrial and military heritage. A place where history was not just made, but crafted. The Lithgow Small Arms Factory Museum.
The museum was set up by a trust. It's all fully volunteer run, and volunteers get different things out of it. I love the museum, I love the history, and I love the heritage. A lot want to think they're putting something back into the community, and they're helping to save Australia's heritage.
I am a volunteer tour guide. I typically show people around in the main factory. This was one of the first tools used to properly check and maintain barrels, the brass hammer. Say there was a recurring piece of jut-out metal. He would have to hit it until it was properly removed. The HS3A, this machine helped as a mainframe to help manufacture machinery from some of the larger machines that were powered by rudimentary AI. I get to meet knowledgeable people. I get to see all types of characters and people who come there for different reasons. As an example, there are some that come here because they worked at the factory. Others came because they have a background and knowledge with firearms or machinery. And some simply want to know about the history and are curious about the site itself, it being such a spectacle for Lithgow.
My name is Dudley King, Wilbert Dudley King. I started as an apprentice when I was 17, and I worked through the apprenticeship as a tool maker, then as a tradesman, then later on as a technical officer, and I finished up as chief draftsman. So I finished when I was 58. So had 40 years.
Yeah. Well, we can probably find your employee record.
You probably can.
Yeah.
This section shows our employee records. They're all archived. We have two sections of employee records. We have up to about 1942 in the first run, and from 42 up to about 89.
Once the centre of arms manufacturing for a nation, this impressive heritage building tells the story of resilience, innovation, and the struggle to preserve a unique piece of Australia's past.
Our collection is quite substantial. We get a lot of people come in and expect a lot less. They'll come in, they'll expect a tin shed in the backyard. They have no idea about the commercial side of it. A lot of them think it's just a gun museum, which it's not.
The Small Arms Factory was more than just manufacturing armaments. To see all the different things that the factory made in later years, it's really been quite amazing.
This is the commercial area showing some of the products that were made by the factory over the years, partly to help Australia, partly to keep the factory going, and partly to keep employees here at the factory. A massive contract was for Slazenger for golf clubs. The first mixed masters in Australia. Beautiful little treadle lathe. It turns out it's actually the first model Colchester lathe. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of very few in the world. This display on high precision mass production is a work in progress. We're just finishing off the labelling. That's why we've got sort of paper labelling on some of them at the moment, just to make sure everything's right before we put the proper labelling on. We're very proud of the fact that some of our objects are unique. We've got a lot of, in the firearm side of it, a lot of prototypes, experimental, etc. But not only that, we've got the processes where you go through from a blank object to a finished product, which you won't see elsewhere. So it's quite a comprehensive museum.
This area is going to be the World War II section. Women will be interspersed throughout this section because it's about the Second World War, so that takes into account the women joining the workforce.
During World War II, the Small Arms Factory in Lithgow became a vital hub of production, and its workforce was transformed by the influx of women who stepped into roles traditionally held by men. Women from all walks of life found themselves on the factory floor, operating machinery, assembling weapons, and testing ammunition. These women, many of whom had never worked in industry before, displayed remarkable resilience and skill, defying the gender norms of the time.
I worked in the library, and I was the first girl that could stay on when I got married. And that was the policy in those days, if you worked for the Commonwealth. So that was a big change, which a change for the better for everybody.
My name's Almedina Bryce, and I started my apprenticeship as a fitter machinist in 1982, and I did my apprenticeship in fitting machining, tool making, as well as my mechanical engineering. I ended up as a technical officer, drawing officer here at the factory.
My name is Barbara Waters. I started at the Small Arms Factory on the 14th of January 1957, coming from school as a little clerical assistant.
There was over 1,000 people working here then, but it was the job, and being a government job, we were
Busy.
very secure.
I worked there in the factory, and I worked on the components for the Vickers gun. And I remember that, and I had very lovely people looking after me.
I'm Diane, I'm Joyce's daughter, and my dad worked here until he retired when he was in about 60. He's passed away now, but yeah, he worked here his entire life, and I've even got some manuals here from when he first started working, when he was 17 years old. It's something very special, obviously, because, you know, Mum and Dad met here. They used to meet under the arches. They married and lived in Lithgow, and Mum hasn't shifted away ever since and built their home here. So, you know, the factory's responsible for me being here, I guess.
The story would be ingenuity, persistence, getting over hard times. When the factory was going well, the town went well. When the factory was bad, the town went bad. They were very much integrated, and many families had 2 or 3 generations working at the factory.
Brother-in-law worked here, he started the same day as me in 1980. Father worked here 35 years and more or less half his life. And I worked here for 27. That was well over half of my life by the time I'd left. Part of your life, part of your psyche, part of everything I've been, I suppose. I'm a factory boy.
My father was Harry Martin, and he worked here through the war. He was the only boy out of the 6 boys that didn't actually go to war because he had to stay here and make the guns and the bullets. And then my late husband worked here, Jeff's father, Henry Bretherton.
Do you remember coming here when you were a kid?
There's an area out the back that used to be the public swimming pools. I remember sneaking in there when it wasn't the public swimming pools when a day like today. Yeah, after school, sneaking in and having a quick swim.
It was just like a dam, actually. It was a factory dam, and the kids used to swim in that because there wasn't a pool in Lithgow at that time. So it was a favourite spot to come, even though you weren't supposed to come.
My brother did his apprenticeship here. Several other people that I went to school with also did their trades here. A lot of Lithgow people did their apprenticeships here and got trades.
My name is Leo Vlegenhart, and I started here at the factory in 1961, right up until 2002. So I worked in the maintenance section as an industrial plumber for 30 years. For anyone that worked here like myself, I can remember the old factory whistle and the old Bundy clocks, and, you know, just about everything that's here I can relate to.
This was the factory whistle. It was part of the factory, or actually it was part of Lithgow's life for almost 70 years.
The factory whistle arrived here in 1912. It's supposedly a Mississippi riverboat whistle, and as I understand it was a gift from Pratt & Whitney in the United States, in Connecticut, who built all these machines that we can see behind us here. It was a gift to the factory to commemorate the opening of it. The factory whistle was the timepiece for this entire town. They say that on a clear day, when the weather was good and the wind was blowing in the right direction, you could hear the factory whistle 5 kilometres away over the mountain over here, all the way down to the township of Hartley. It went off, I think, at about 6 o'clock in the morning to wake up half the town. It went off at 5 to 7 or thereabouts to warn the employees that work was about to start. It went off at 3:45 in the afternoon to warn Mum that Dad was on his way home. Because you have to remember, in 1912, Most people didn't have watches as we have today, may not have had clocks in their house. So the factory whistle, which could be heard over the entire township, it set the time for everything that was happening around the township.
From the early 20th century, the Lithgow Small Arms Factory was a symbol of industrial might, producing rifles, ammunition, and firearms that played a crucial role in Australia's defence. It was here that soldiers were equipped for war and workers forged the tools of their nation's security. But as times changed, so did the demand for these weapons, leading to major job losses.
When I came here, there were 1,000 employees, and 30,000 by 1,000 employees was a huge amount of money that the taxpayer out there didn't realise that that's what they were paying out of their taxes. And that's what prompted the Labor government to say we can't keep this subsidy going. So the only way that we can do it is to actually reduce the workforce. We reduced the workforce from 1,000 that were here when I arrived in 84. And when I left in 1996, there were 200 employees remaining in the place.
The museum became a project by those who believed history should not be forgotten, and a place where the stories of those who worked the factory floor could live on. But preserving such a legacy would not come easily.
The other thing we looked at or talked about was using the building behind us to make that into a consortium of museums.
We've got a whole top floor that runs the whole length. Would be fantastic for any amount of like an art gallery, museums. On the bottom you've got a lot of very small rooms that would make fantastic resident artists.
The buildings I think have got to be used. If they're not used, they are going to fall down. If they're used, they will be protected. We got on to Powerhouse Museum at one stage. About the time they were talking about Parramatta and said, well, why not come to Lithgow? The buildings are already here. Hello, Matt. Yeah, Matt, it's Kerry, mate, from Lithgow Small Arms Factory Museum. How are you? How are we going with that, organising that group coming down to Castle Hill? We've got about 9 people coming. The custodian of the Powerhouse came to visit us and wanted to do a reciprocal thing where we go and visit the Powerhouse at Castle Hill. We've got 10 volunteers today. Sort of a thank you to the volunteers for what they've done for us and let them see what other museums are like, get an idea of how they do things, get an idea of the collection that they don't have on display.
If we can gather here, one of the things you were talking about capacity before, at this stage we're not going up, we're not putting anything up, but we could, as you can see, there's a bit of room to get to go up higher, so there's an opportunity for us in the future, if needs be, to put a racking level above this. The Prime Minister's announced this initiative to start manufacturing again in Australia, and I think what you've got is a historical story that feeds into 2 parts of that narrative. One is being able to make things, right, and starting a successful sort of company around it. And 2 is that it was established because we needed to be able to look after ourselves. I think we need to talk about that story, about how your museum and the institution that it's a museum of is a sort of foundation story for what we want to do now. Yeah.
I could see this having 50,000 people a year, no trouble at all.
The directors of the Lithgow Small Arms Factory Museum have a dream. This dream is for the old factory site to be heritage listed, so it can become a significant cultural centre for the Greater West and once again provide jobs for Lithgow people. But without heritage listing of the site, this dream is impossible.
On the left we have a timeline describing how the factory came about and the reasoning behind it. The factory started in 1912. It was owned by the Commonwealth Government. It was the Commonwealth Small Arms Factory Lithgow. The Commonwealth owned all small arms and ammunition factories, munitions factories right through Australia. There was a number in Victoria, some in South Australia, and of course a couple in New South Wales. It went through up until the late 80s, and it went to what they call corporate, which was a common thing in those days. It was still semi-government owned, but it was a company with shareholders. I think the Lithgow factory had 3 shareholders.
In 1988, the factory became part of the Weapons and Engineering Division of Australian Defence Industries, or ADI, which was later sold to a private consortium owned equally by Transfield and Thompson CSF. Transfield's share was bought out in October 2006. Since then, it has operated as part of the Thales Worldwide Munitions Supply Group.
We wanted to originally list just this building and the collection for heritage listing, because we could do that fairly easy. The director of Heritage New South Wales said, no, it's got to be the full site. Most of the power for heritage comes from the States, right? They've tried listing the site at least 4 or 5 times that I know of. Various architects have tried to list it. The Heritage Council themselves have tried to list it. Others have tried to list it. And each time it comes to the fact that it's not in the commercial interest of Thales to have it listed. And it goes away.
Okay, I was about to say, what grounds do they knock it back on?
Just not in their commercial interest. Full stop.
Despite its significance to the people of Lithgow and its importance to preserving a unique part of Australia's history, the museum's existence is now under threat. Due to its leasing agreement with French multinational Thales, the museum cannot plan and implement important initiatives and ensure its future.
And now they've put the new fence up, which has put a visual barrier, and now they're talking about they're going to start boarding up windows, which is going to make it look even more derelict than it is now.
The heritage listing needs to be applied as soon as possible, because otherwise
they will keep going. They'll just keep going, keep destroying. The museum is the factory site, and if they destroy the factory site, they're destroying a great part of the museum.
Just seeing this and how it is now is emotional. It's a lot of damage. They should be building on this, not making it smaller.
Thales use the factory's history to a great extent, but at the same time, they're destroying the museum virtually by not giving us any continuity in ownership. While ever we've got the buildings owned by Thales, we're hamstrung in what we can and can't do. We wanted to put a disabled ramp in, and Thales wouldn't give us permission. They mucked around, didn't give us permission. There's been a lot of things, one after the other, and they're demoralising for the volunteers. We're fully volunteer run, so the one thing volunteers don't need is to be demoralised and brought down.
So this is the old canteen. It has a full commercial kitchen. This area would be where we serve people meals when they come, or they can take them out onto the lawn out there. Thales know that we can't operate under their lease. They know that.
We've had a number of express intentions and promises over the years that said one day we would own the buildings. We've even had a couple of draft contracts for sale, and they've been reneged on, and us and the volunteers have all had that false hope that we were going to one day own the building and go and progress the museum. We're believing and hoping that something will happen, all for nothing.
And building the museum on that basis.
Building the future of the museum. Exactly. That's the most important thing.
A group of criminals is on the run tonight after a smash and grab at a gun museum in the state's Central West. More than 24 historical firearms were stolen, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Bashing down the door of a Lithgow museum, armed with sledgehammers and crowbars, thieves in a room full of weapons, they smashed in the glass cabinets, filling up a bag with 27 handguns, worth more than $200,000, some hundreds of years old.
Out of the 27 handguns, 23 were highly commemorative presentation handguns. They're certainly collector firearms, not a normal firearm.
In August 2024, the museum suffered a break-in. Due to damage to the building, all the firearms were removed from the exhibit. The museum was forced to close its doors to the public. The many volunteers of the museum were devastated.
A group of criminals is on the run tonight after a smash and grab at a gun museum in the state's Central West.
Bashing down the door of a Lithgow museum, armed with sledgehammers and crowbars.
I'm thinking how they continually misrepresent the museum, calling it a gun museum. They continually misrepresent what we're about as a museum. They don't understand that we're a museum of history, industry and innovation.
After 26 years, disappointed that it's happened. It's going to have a profound effect on the museum.
We had the police media conference this morning at 11 o'clock. There was police, numerous media here as well. There was a double glass door, they smashed that open. So then they went from there upstairs, 27 handguns. Took 4 target pistols and 23 presentation, commemorative presentation, whatever. So, yeah.
What does this mean for the museum and the volunteers?
Don't know. Be closed for months. We've got to wait and see if we're going to be allowed to open again. That's the first thing. And if we are allowed to open again, then it's a massive amount of work to bring it back to where it was. Don't know what to say.
Here in the reference library, the remaining firearms have been taken off display, and for the volunteers, they don't know when they'll be able to reopen their doors.
How do you feel, mate?
Terrible. This place with not only millions of dollars worth of historical firearms, but also that this place practically existing from 1911 and in construction at the start of the 1900s is just completely infiltrated by these fiends, these crooks, and they've just taken what's rightfully histories and what's rightfully the museums, and that they've caused this whole unnecessary fiasco that we really could do without.
My question is to the Minister for Jobs and Tourism. Minister, what steps have you taken to address the challenges faced by the Lithgow Small Arms Factory Museum?
There was a break-in, some objects were stolen. It has led to a situation where now this is an institution under great pressure.
Can the Minister give this House an undertaking today that his office will follow up directly with the Lithgow Small Arms Factory Museum?
I'm not in a position to assure the House that there is a clear way forward here.
All right, folks, it's 11 o'clock. I've been asked to sort of chair this meeting. The thing that we have to keep in mind, and he didn't hide it, that Ted Shea, the director, basically said that registry have the power to remove our licence, and I guess would then order the New South Wales Police to get it off the site. Without the firearms licence, Terry, we really got our hands tied, yeah?
There's 2 licences. Donna's got the permit, I've got a dealer's licence. Without those 2 licences, we're no longer authorised to have firearms. Just about nearly all the heads of firearms registry over the years have been here. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, with hindsight, it's not safe.
It's all our fault.
You all know this place inside and out, and you've all put blood, sweat and tears here, and they're all willing to throw you out at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. And not only that, we have put in a hell of a lot of work on the basis that we will own this building. And they're now saying that basis doesn't matter.
I have got probably the longest interest in the museum of anybody here, because I've been working with this collection now since 1992, 93, couple of years before the museum opened. Personally, I think the museum is dead. If Tallis won't sell and we can't operate on a lease basis, I don't think the museum has a future. That's my personal opinion.
This collection blows me away. This story blows me away, and I can't give up until I know there's absolutely no chance. You look at what we're losing here. You know, it might be stress, it might be work, but you look at what's at stake.
I don't want you to die of a heart attack.
Well, I can't let go what's at stake. You just look at what we've got. You know?
We talked to a person who suggested that picketing was the way to go. People power is, I won't tell the whole story, but he was involved in a court case that went their way. The people didn't like the result and picketed, and the court case was turned around. So the open day is really the start, because that's where we get out to the public and start telling them what we need from them. So the one thing we have in our favour that they will never ever have is a huge amount of passion.
But the museum's defenders remain undeterred, knowing that if they let this story slip away, a vital chapter of the country's industrial history could be lost forever. The museum is more than just a collection of weapons and machinery. It is a reminder of how industries shaped a nation and how communities can fight to hold on to what matters. It is a place of education, where the next generation can learn about the sacrifices and innovations that defined Australia's past, and the power of perseverance in the face of adversity.
That's just a little leaflet so that you know what's happening, what the threats are, what the issues are regarding the maintenance and opening of the museum.
Today's a community day to get the community involved with the museum. We need community support, so we're hoping the community get right behind us. So far it looks like they're going to. It's been a great day so far.
Why are you here today?
Oh, bring back memories here. You know, all our friends used to work here.
We just want to support the museum and hope that they can get it up and running again.
Here today because I read it in the paper and I thought, please don't close. Please don't close. So I thought, Lithgow needs you.
The factory meant a lot as we were growing up, as a lot of people were employed here. And to see it sort of silently slip away is a shame for the whole community. It's the sort of thing that we need to remember, and it's part of our heritage of the whole area, really.
I think it's something that, you know, Lithgow should be proud of, because it's certainly a great heritage building and lots of people have worked here and generations have worked here, and it's something we need to preserve. And I think, you know, we need to do everything we can to keep it going.
I worked here from 1970 to 1974. I worked in most of the sections, but I ended up in the casting section, investment casting. The factory is part of Australia's heritage and should be kept that way. It's not just a big empty building, it fought a couple of wars for us.
My father designed the safe lock handcuffs that are still used worldwide now, and he got a British Empire medal off the Queen. This was from Minister for Housing in 1971 when Dad received his recognition with the British Empire medal. We are here today showing respect for the continuation of the small arms factory and for people like my dad, that they're recognised.
My great-grandfather worked here back in the wartime. He was Dennis McGrath. I think the factory is extremely important to Lithgow. It's community, it's connection, and everyone in the community has some connection to the factory. And if that was to be lost, then we lose community connection, we lose our community history, we lose our community identity, and I think it's important. It should be kept for future generations.
My uncle, my father and my mother both spent time here. Everybody's got relatives. I did an apprenticeship here. There was 1,200 people working here when I was here. It was a fantastic place to work.
What time frame?
I started in 72 and left in 78.
At the present time being, I'm sure you probably would have heard, is that
This was broken into on the 25th of August.
Yep. So here we have an information sheet that outlines where the museum is at, but more importantly, what people can do. That is the organisations and possibly people that they can write to in order to support us and their local community in maintaining this museum open and in the hands of the actual museum people.
The Lithgow Small Arms Factory Museum needs your support. To help, do the following. 1. Share this video and tell others about the plight of the museum. 2. Be ready to assist. Contact the museum and offer your support in any way you can. Register as a volunteer. 3. Stay connected. Join the museum's Facebook page for updates or subscribe to the email list. 4. Donate. We need money to reopen the museum and pay for legal costs as we pursue heritage listing. 5. Lobby for support. Contact Lithgow Council, state and federal politicians to express how vital the museum is. Ask them to actively work towards saving it and advocate for heritage listing to secure its future. Thanks for your time, and please support the Lithgow Small Arms Factory Museum, an important part of Australia's heritage.
We do this purely and simply for the love of what we're doing.
And we don't
get paid for it, our
day
whole
after
lives.
day after day, hour after hour, fighting people for a right to run what belongs to Australia. It doesn't belong to them, it belongs to Australia.
Before I let you go, I cannot stress how much of a national tragedy it would be to lose this place.
Yeah, we don't want it to lose it.
No, that's what we're here.
It should be a heritage item, and it should be controlled and funded by the government.
It's Lithgow's history, and it needs to be retained. It's really important, I think.
This museum belongs to everybody, and we've got to keep it going. So, you've all got eyes, you've all got hands, you've all got computers. Write to your member of parliament and make sure we keep the museum open.